What if the exhaustion you feel every night is not from doing too much, but from doing too little of what truly matters? What if you're not burnt out, but misaligned? And what if 6 months of ruthless discipline could rebuild your identity from the inside out? Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will face a decision. You will either return to drifting, or you will choose a burden that transforms you. You are not tired. You are unanchored. There is a difference. Real fatigue comes from meaningful exertion. It comes from building, solving, enduring, creating. The hollow ache you feel at the end of the day is something else entirely. It is the emotional residue of scattered attention. It is what happens when your hours are spent reacting instead of directing. You wake up, you check your phone, you scroll, you answer messages that are not urgent. You consume opinions that are not yours. You solve problems that do not matter. You give your best cognitive energy to trivialities. By noon, your mind is fragmented. By evening, your spirit is diluted. And you call this tiredness. But you are not exhausted from meaningful effort. You are drained from misalignment. You have traded focus for convenience. You have traded discipline for comfort. You have traded ownership for distraction. You tell yourself that life will improve when circumstances improve, when the job becomes less demanding, when the debt is paid, when the schedule opens up, when the weekend arrives, when motivation strikes. But life does not change when circumstances soften. Life changes when your response to reality hardens. Most people drift. They float like leaves in the wind of trends, moods, and impulses. They wait for inspiration as if it were lightning, unpredictable and rare. They say, "When I feel ready, I'll begin." But lightning does not strike those hiding indoors. It strikes those standing in the storm. Right now, you may be a passenger in your own mind. You're watching the scenery of your life blur past you. Days pass, weeks pass, years pass. You feel busy, but not purposeful. Active, but not advancing. It is time to step out of the vehicle. It is time to stop seeking constant entertainment and start seeking meaningful resistance. Because identity is not built through consumption. It is forged through endurance. True confidence is not something you summon with affirmations. It is not a mood. It is not a playlist. It is not a motivational quote. Confidence is evidence. It is the quiet certainty that comes from repeatedly defeating your own weakness. If you want to rebuild yourself, you must choose a path not for applause, not for visibility, not even for immediate results, but for training. Training of the mind, training of the will, training of character. Choose a craft that forces your hands to move in alignment with your thoughts. Woodworking, restoration, gardening, metalwork, mechanical assembly, cooking from scratch, building something real and tangible. This is not about the object you produce. It is about resistance. Physical material does not care about your mood. Wood does not respond to your excuses. Metal does not bend because you had a hard day. Soil does not yield to your frustration. If you rush, the wood splinters. If you measure poorly, the structure fails. If you ignore precision, the machine breaks. Matter does not negotiate. And that is exactly why it trains you. When you work with something tangible, you are practicing objective honesty. You cannot lie to a machine. You cannot manipulate a measurement. You cannot charm a crooked cut into being straight. You learn that your internal state determines your external result. If your mind is chaotic, your work becomes chaotic. If you are impatient, your output reveals it. If you are careless, reality exposes it. This is training in composure. You breathe through mistakes. You start over. You accept imperfection as feedback, not as insult. You learn that restarting is not failure. It is refinement. Over time, you begin to value precision over speed, process over praise, mastery over applause. You become someone who does not need immediate validation because the work itself is honest. Now choose something that stretches your mind beyond comfort. Commit to rigorous abstract thought. Study advanced mathematics. Learn a difficult language. Explore philosophy deeply. Master coding systems. Analyze economics. Understand complex structures. This is cognitive armor. The modern world wants your mind soft and easily triggered. It wants you distracted and emotionally reactive. It wants you addicted to novelty and allergic to difficulty. When you force yourself to wrestle with ideas that offer no instant gratification, you harden your intellect. You sit with confusion instead of escaping it. You struggle with concepts that do not yield quickly. You teach your brain that difficulty is not danger. At first, it feels uncomfortable. You want to quit. You want to switch tasks. You want to check your phone. You want relief. But you stay, and something changes. The phrase, "I can't understand this," slowly transforms into "I haven't focused long enough yet." That shift is monumental, because now you believe effort is the variable, not intelligence. When you finally grasp something that once felt impossible, you experience earned confidence. Not hype, not arrogance, earned clarity. And that clarity builds a calm, analytical presence. In a crisis, you do not panic. You analyze. You observe. You assess variables. You become someone who remains in the room when others emotionally exit. That is power. Now train the body. Not for aesthetics. Not for trends. Not for a temporary challenge. Train for authority. Choose a discipline of movement with no finish line. Long-distance running. Calisthenics. Martial arts. Swimming. Strength training. Climbing. The body is a compliant servant when trained, but a rebellious ruler when neglected. It wants comfort. It wants ease. It wants to stop early. It wants to indulge. When you rise early to train, especially when you do not feel like it, you establish hierarchy. Your will commands. Your body obeys. Every repetition performed when your muscles tremble is a vote for discipline. Every mile in the rain is a vote for resilience. Every session you complete despite fatigue is a vote for identity. You are teaching your nervous system to endure discomfort without collapse. This translates directly into life. When conversations grow tense, you do not fold. When projects grow complex, you do not retreat. When emotions rise, you remain steady, because you have practiced staying under pressure. Resilience is not imagined. It is installed. Now train your strategic mind. Engage in environments where consequences are visible and immediate. Chess. Go. Strategic simulations. High-level competitive games requiring foresight and patience. On the board, excuses disappear. If you lose, it is because of oversight, impulse, emotional decision, lack of preparation. This is brutal and necessary. In life, we blame circumstances. We blame timing. We blame others. But in strategy, the board reflects your thinking. You learn to pause before acting. You learn to think several moves ahead. You learn that an attractive move may be a trap. You learn that patience can overpower aggression. Most importantly, you learn to separate emotion from decision. That gap between stimulus and response is freedom. Within that space lies control. When you cultivate it, you become difficult to manipulate. You no longer react impulsively to provocation. You no longer chase immediate gratification at the expense of long-term victory. You think like a general, even in civilian life. Now train your self-awareness, right? Not emotional journaling alone, but objective logging. Record your actions. Record your habits. Record your failures without dramatization. Record your wins without exaggeration. When you document your days with honesty, you eliminate self-deception. You begin to see patterns. You notice that you say you're disciplined, but skip practice twice a week. You say you're focused, but check your phone 30 times per hour. You say you are calm, but raise your voice under stress. Data does not flatter, but data liberates. Writing builds internal accountability. It builds a terrifying clarity. You become both architect and auditor of your life. You stop blaming moods. You start adjusting systems. You replace excuses with experiments. Over months, this self-observation builds radical responsibility. And responsibility is strength. Now, there's one more rule. Do your chosen discipline in silence. Do not broadcast it. Do not announce it. Do not seek validation for it. This generation performs everything. Every achievement is posted. Every effort is displayed. Every milestone is shared for applause. But private discipline builds private power. When you accomplish something difficult and tell no one, the reward stays internal. You're no longer dependent on likes, comments, or external nods of approval. You become self-sufficient. There is a particular confidence that grows from secret competence. You walk differently. You speak calmly. You do not argue for respect. You radiate it, because you know what you are capable of. If your self-worth is constructed from public opinion, you are fragile. If it is built from private effort, you are unshakable. Now understand something critical. Discipline is not a buffet. You cannot sample everything and expect transformation. The greatest mistake is chasing variety. Variety feels productive, but often masks avoidance. When things get difficult, you switch. When boredom appears, you pivot. When resistance rises, you abandon. Growth requires depth. Choose one path, and commit to 6 months of non-negotiable execution. Not based on mood, not based on weather, not based on motivation, based on schedule. Schedule is authority. 6 months of one disciplined pursuit will change you more than 6 years of scattered attempts. Because depth rewires identity. In 6 months, you will encounter boredom, doubt, frustration, plateaus. You will question whether it is worth it. That is the forge. Stay. The person who remains when it gets boring is the person who transforms. You're not just building skill. You are building staying power. You are building self-trust. When you say you will train, and you train, self-respect grows. When you say you will study, and you study, integrity strengthens. When you say you will endure, and you endure, identity solidifies. 6 months from now, you will be different. The question is, stronger or weaker? Because change is not optional. You're either drifting toward mediocrity or forging toward mastery. The forge is open. Resistance is waiting. Your future self is watching. When this ends, you'll make a decision. Will you return to scrolling and drifting? Or will you choose a burden that shapes you? What is the one discipline you will commit to today? Without announcement, without excuses, without negotiation. Choose carefully, because your identity is being built right now.